the courthouse right now. She's at the courthouse, a smile on her face there. It looks like she's about to start talking. We could go listen in.
I would like to thank everyone for being here with us today. And first and foremost, I would like to thank the Heavenly Master. Because without him, nothing would be possible in my life, and I probably wouldn't get justice today. So I want to thank him most of all. I would like to thank everyone around the world. I have received cards, flowers, letters, and I would like to thank everyone for their support and prayers. My son Odin was the most precious gift in my life. I'm gonna miss his smile. From across the street, I would see his pink gum coming towards me. On Father's Day, I'm going to miss the best words. Happy Father's Day, Ma. I've been his mother and father all his life. So on Father's Day, that's one of the things that he gives me. On that Sunday, I had just came from church and my son saw me. He says, Ma, you look so beautiful today. I love those colors on you. And those were the last words I heard from my son. Those are some my baby, just like God has left his footprint in the sand. My baby footprint is in my heart forever. He was my strength. I love him dearly. I thank my family who has been there with me for 2.5 months. And for 2 years, I would like to thank the prosecutors and everyone that had a hand in helping the prosecutors to come this far. We serve an awesome God, and we all should remember that. Because without him, we are nothing. I thank you.
How do you forgive like that? You said, yeah, I'm not going to take any.
No question, please. Thank you.
I'd just like to comment first on the extraordinary dignity and class of woman who just addressed you. You saw it in the victim impact statement and throughout the trial. I'd first like to thank the jury for their service in this case the last several months. I have great respect for the jury system. A fair trial before a jury of our peers is one of the most important rights that we as citizens have in this country. It is not easy to take 3 months away from your work and family to sit in judgment of a fellow citizen. The jury's verdict was well supported by the evidence, and I applaud the close attention the jurors paid to the evidence in discharging their civic duty. Aaron Hernandez may have been a well-known New England Patriots football player. However, in the end, the jury found that he was just a man who committed a brutal murder. The fact that he was a professional athlete meant nothing in the end. He is a citizen who was held accountable by the jury for his depraved conduct. The victim, Odin Lloyd, was a young man who had his whole life ahead of him. He was working, spending time developing a loving relationship with his girlfriend and enjoying life. Every day, this young man made the effort to ride his bicycle from Dorchester to Norwood to earn a paycheck. And in his spare time, he continued to play the sport he loved. He was clearly deeply loved by his family and friends, as you could see from the comments today. He did not deserve to fall victim to the brutal and truly senseless murder that Aaron Hernandez now stands convicted of committing. Throughout this entire process, Odin Lloyd's family has showed grace, dignity, and patience during this difficult ordeal. They appeared in court every day. They conducted themselves with the utmost class during the trial. Their dignity provided great strength to all of us during the prosecution of this case. Only they can appreciate how difficult this ordeal was for them and any family faced with a similar tragedy. Ursula Ward has led her family throughout this tremendous catastrophe and has had to do it with a public spotlight on her every step of the way. I again commend her for her grace and class before you today throughout the trial and her comments to the judge, a very special person. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and admiration for the performance of our trial team. It was a great team effort. Bill McCauley and the team spent most of the time during the last 22 months focusing on this case and preparing to obtain justice for Odin Lloyd and his family. They did just that. People should know how much time they spent during the last 2 years at the expense of their families and personal time. The job of a prosecutor can often go underappreciated because most of the work is done outside of the cameras. I have nothing but admiration and respect for their efforts and performance during. I do want to specifically acknowledge them individually. I'm not going to cover everybody, but it's important to note not only Bill McCauley, but Pat Bomberg, who did tremendous work in this case, Brian Griffin, Rob Brissett, our technical person, Jennifer Purcell, a young woman who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to prepare this case and provide important information to our prosecutors. Roger Michael, in addition, our advocates who worked so closely with the family and provided them comfort during this difficult time. Daphne Kroll, Frank Ramus, and Brandon Ferris. I also want to express my appreciation to my prosecutors' families for their support and tolerance of the sacrifices they had to make over the last 2 years. We spent many Sundays here outside of the public eye, them particularly devoted to putting the best case forward for the victim's family and the public. I also want to especially recognize Chief John Riley and the North Attleboro Police Department. Their cooperation in this investigation was tremendous and a credit to their professionalism. I would also like to thank our state police detective unit who worked tirelessly on this case. In particular, I would take special note of Trooper Eric Benson, the case officer, Jeremiah Donovan, and also North Attleboro Detective Daniel Arrighi, the lead detective for that department. They were critical to the success of this prosecution. I would also like to commend and thank the Bristol, Connecticut Police Department for their cooperation in this matter. Lastly, I would like to thank the media, you, for your patience during the last 3 months. Respecting the adherence to the gag order that was in place, again, I think you acted professionally and with diligence in respecting the gag order. So thank you for that, and at this time I'm prepared to take questions.
Mr. Quinn, what did you think when Mrs. Ward, in her impact statement, said that she forgives the people who did this to her son?
I think it's a tremendous compliment to her. As difficult as it is for people, in the end, forgiveness is what it's about if one can bring themselves to do that. By doing that today, it shows you what type of person she is.
Tom, how confident were you that this was the decision that was going to be made today, that was going to be a guilty verdict?
I felt confident that we had presented a strong case, and after a fair consideration of all the evidence, that Mr. Hernandez would be convicted.
Do you feel the judge treated the prosecution fairly in this case in terms of evidence admitted?
During every trial, there are decisions from a judge that we agree with and that we disagree with. I think that occurred in this case like it does in every case.
Were you surprised by the length of the deliberation?
I was not.
Why?
Tom, can you comment on the whole celebrity nature of this case? This just wasn't a normal case. This was a big football celebrity, and how do you think that impacted this trial?
Well, It impacted it significantly based on what we're doing here now. Certainly it was a major case. The case gained national attention. I think in the end, a fair trial was provided to the defendant. In the end, he's a celebrity. He's a Patriots football player. That attracts everybody. But in the end, he was a man who committed a serious murder and was convicted of that by a jury of his peers.
What did you think of the jurors not coming up with the premeditation, coming up with the atrocity? They said that they came in different ways. But
I respect the jury system, as I said, and that's their decision based on what they do in the privacy of the deliberations. He was convicted of first-degree murder, a brutal murder of Odin Lloyd.
Mr. Quinn, how important do you think was Robert Kraft's testimony?
I think all of the testimony contributed something. Each portion of the testimony put together evidence that in total presented a strong case for conviction.
Going into jury, did you guys know you might need extreme atrocity or cruelty if you couldn't prove premeditation?
I think we requested instruction based on the evidence. You heard the evidence of the number of shots and the manner of the killing, and a conviction for extreme atrocity and cruelty was appropriate based on the evidence that you heard.
Mr. Quinn,
obviously there was the joint venture theory here. Do you think Aaron Hernandez pulled the trigger?
I would say that you heard the evidence that was presented. Certainly one could conclude that he did, but I, again, respect I don't know what the jurors apparently spoke to some of you earlier. I respect the privacy of their deliberations, and I think the evidence was presented, and you could certainly conclude that.
3 charges that were separated out. Do you plan to prosecute those 3 remaining charges that were separated out?
I mean, our focus now is on the successful prosecution of the most important matter, the brutal killing of Odin Lloyd. Those matters will take care of themselves.
How difficult was it to try this case with no murder weapon, no eyewitness, and no really hard and fast motive?
I would say that our team, our prosecution, did a very good job of marshaling all of the evidence in this case. This was piece by piece. Now, no eyewitness. There was an eyewitness, I would suggest to you. It was a videotape. Videotape, you watched it in course. That was certainly something the jury could consider. What was on the tape prior to the homicide and after the homicide. So I think I have the utmost respect for the quality of our prosecutors and the job they did. And frankly, as high publicity as this case was, I had complete confidence and was not fretting at all during the prosecution of this case because of the confidence I had in all the people who were part of this team.
How important do you think it was when Mr. Sultan acknowledged during closing arguments that Mr. Hernandez was there?
That's a strategic decision that the defense makes. That's up to the jury. I mean, he suggested the defendant was at the scene. I think the evidence was clear that he was at the scene, based on a reasonable view of it, based on the DNA and the vehicle and the footprint. So, I mean, that's something that he conceded in the closing, and I think it was very consistent with the evidence.
Were you surprised by that? Did you do it in closing?
Was I surprised by that? Not necessarily, but again, I'm not really reading what's in his mind or the defense's mind. They're trying to put their best foot forward, so to speak, in the closing, and that's the strategy that they took. I think the evidence was very strong that he was at the scene. Let's just focus on the Aaron Hernandez matter. I think this is a great day for the Commonwealth, great day for the family, because the jury has spoken.
Tom, a key part of the defense's case was that you targeted Aaron, you went after him, and that the police had a sloppy investigation. How do you respond to those allegations?
My response is that the evidence targeted Aaron Hernandez. The evidence led to Aaron Hernandez. That's what I would say. And the evidence is what convicted Aaron Hernandez. There was no sloppy police investigation. It was done professionally, thoughtfully, and the evidence that was obtained, especially in the early stages of the investigation, led to Aaron Hernandez and has led to his conviction.
Tom, you've seen a lot of juries in your time. How would you characterize this one? They appeared to be very involved in focus.
I think so. I think they appeared to be an attentive, focused jury throughout the 2+ months. That would be my observation of them. And I respect that. That was what was necessary, especially in a case of this length. This isn't a week trial. This is 2.5 months. Some of them were selected the second week of January. So I have great respect for their attention and focus during this trial.
Tom, does your office expect an appeal beyond the automatic SJC review?
First-degree murder is the automatic reveal. Beyond that, I wouldn't know.
Do you intend to fully prosecute the 2 other men who are charged with murder in this case?
They're co-defendants. Their matters are coming up for review next month, and the prosecution of them will go forward.
Is there a chance that you could theoretically come to a plea agreement now that the joint venture theory held up?
I would say this, I don't really want to get involved in talking about the other 2 co-defendants because those are pending cases. You sat through the evidence in the case. I mean, that's all hypothetical. I think we want to focus on this case and the successful conclusion of it.
Anything more about the court judge's order asking you something you can talk about at the time and now it's over?
Well, I think the judge conducted a fair and orderly proceeding. I think that I see victims and witnesses become emotional on the stand throughout trials, and I think it's appropriate if it's natural and not done that in a way that would detract from her testimony, that would be appropriate for her to express her emotions when she testifies.
Now, the judge threw out a lot of evidence you guys brought. Obviously, at the time, that hurt your case, but now going forward, that theoretically helps any appealable issues. Now, the appealable issues are much longer.
Well, obviously, any evidence that was excluded is not going to be the subject of an appeal. The appellate process takes care of itself. Automatic appeal, first-degree murder, that's for another day. We feel that we tried a good case and presented the evidence in an appropriate and proper fashion.
Do you think Aaron Hernandez gets it? Do you think he got it today when that verdict was read?
I don't know. I think when you're taken away and they say life in prison without parole, someone's got to respond to that. There's got to be some response, but I don't know if he got it.
Did your office work closely with the Suffolk County DA? Any information, evidence that's been garnered in the new charges?
Well, Suffolk has their pending cases, has their case pending. They're dealing with it. Certainly, if there's any information we have that can be of assistance, we'll work with them.
Mr. Quinn, can we hear from Mr. McCauley, would you mind?
You can.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
I don't have much to say substantively about the case, but I did want to just thank the jury for the verdict. It's obviously been a long trial, and it was quite, I'm sure, an inconvenience for them in their lives to commit this kind of time. We felt like we had their attention every day, both the prosecution and the defense. They fairly considered the evidence, and they've returned a verdict that's supported by that evidence. So we're very grateful for their commitment. And Odin Lloyd's family, these ladies here who you saw sitting in the front row every day, they were committed to seeing this thing through and for trusting in the process and trusting in that the jury would deliver a fair verdict. And I think they're very satisfied with that. We're very grateful and actually drew strength from their commitment to show up every day and let the process play out as it would. So I'm very grateful for the jury, and also, as you'll recall, when we started the case, we had just lost our district attorney, who went on to be the mayor of this great city. And I wanted to thank again, the governor and the lieutenant governor for the appointment of Thomas Quinn. He was absolutely the right man for the job, and he was part of the team, and it was important to keep the team intact because we had come so far working on the case, and it really has been a team effort. And I'm very grateful for all the agencies that have been involved in this, and I couldn't even name them all for you. It would take too long. But obviously the chief of North Attleboro is here with us, and the state police. But this was a multi-state investigation, and there were so many agencies who committed time and resources and personnel to follow up on leads for us, and our partners, Suffolk County DA's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, the ATF, etc. So good results, just results come from collaborative efforts by agencies working together, and that's what happened in this case. So I'm very grateful for that.
Tell me about the challenge of putting all of that evidence together in a comprehensive, cohesive way to the jury.
At the end of a case, you see the district attorney's office, the prosecutors. I said this earlier inside to part of the people who were involved. 1,000 hands touched this case, and at the end of the case, we're standing here, and it would have been an impossible task for me alone to have handled all the evidence, trying to bring it all together. I've had great assistants, Pat Bomberg, Brian Griffin, the officers assigned to the case, Jeremiah Donovan, Eric Benson, Jennifer Purcell, someone who works in our office. She's really the one who pulled it all together for us. And so too many people to thank. I think they know who they are, but never could have done it without, again, we're here at the end, but there's so many people who have contributed to the success of this case, and we're very grateful because we know it brings some small measure of peace to the family, and the homicides are the most serious cases that we deal with. But the idea that somebody was targeted in this case, I think you heard the evidence. There were 35 people who went to that scene before anybody knew who was involved. And they were from a variety of agencies. They were there just doing their job. Homicides, there's been a commitment by this district attorney and Sam Sutter, the prior district attorney, to fully investigate every homicide. We've done that in this case. We've done that in other cases, every other case. So I'm proud of the work that goes into these cases. Again, we never get to this result without the commitment of so many people, so I'm grateful to that. But
Bill, you had but you've gotten to know this family very well. A decision like this, do you feel personal in a way?
It's definitely personal. I have gotten to know this family, and again, myself, drew strength from just the dignity in the class and the commitment that they showed to let this go out. And there's a responsibility that we have to make sure that we do everything possible. And while I'm talking about that, I just wanted to thank my family, and I know I speak for everybody else. People make sacrifices. We made a sacrifice, and because we're committed to seeing this thing through, and as a result, our families, wives, kids, significant others, sometimes we're not there for them, and but I'm very grateful to them because they understand that we've been so blessed in our lives, and when some tragedy like this happens to another family, we're committed to try and do everything we can, and that sometimes means we have to make sacrifices. So this has been a wonderful family to get to know. And Odin Lloyd, he was a special person. Everything I've heard about him, they don't make young men like that. He didn't have a father. That story I heard early on about the last occasion he had to see his mother really touched us. That he was saying, you know, Happy Father's Day, because he didn't have a father in his life. And in fact, it was his mother who raised him, and raised him to be the kind of person who was respectful and appreciated what he had. You heard his uncle Vaughn, say he couldn't give him anything. He wanted to earn it, and so he rode his bike every day to work as a landscaper. I think it was a great contrast between two young men, the defendant, who had so much ability, talent, money, all the things that everyone thinks you need. And then you had Odin Lloyd, who didn't want that. He didn't want that given to him. He was going to earn it. He didn't have the athletic talent, but he loved football. And he continued to play football. And that's the kind of person he was. And so, yes, I did get to know this family, and that made it easier for us to commit what we thought we had to commit to bring this result about.
Bill, or did you have a sense that it was going to be close when that verdict was made?
We had great confidence in the case that we put together, and anytime you charge somebody with a homicide, you don't make that decision lightly. This decision wasn't made lightly. We intended to see the case through, and so when we charged him, we believed in the case, and obviously there was the evidence. People can, you've heard the evidence. The jury obviously agreed with that, so I'm satisfied with that. Yes.
Bill, you had no murder weapon, you had no eyewitness, but you stood up there in closing arguments and pointed at Aaron Hernandez and said he pulled the trigger. Talk to me about where your confidence in that statement comes from.
Well, I'm not going to, I appreciate the question. It's a very good question, but we're respectful of where we are in the case. We've had one defendant who's been tried, 2 to go. It obviously was a circumstantial case, and a joint venture that we argued to the jury, and I'm not going to say too much more because these other cases have to play out, and we'll obviously...
Just 2 more questions, guys.
Yeah, 2 more.
What went through your head when you heard guilty?
It was quite a relief. It was quite a relief. And again, part of this, there's a personal component, but what we're doing in our jobs is we're the front person, and we have so many people who are counting on us to bring about a successful result. There's the family that I want to bring some measure of peace to them and some closure, but there's the team that we represent, all the people who have worked so hard, and it's not something I take lightly, and so it was quite a great relief to hear the jury, to have them acknowledge what we believe to be the case, that Aaron Hernandez committed the murder of Odin Lloyd.
Bill, looking back at the trial, how did his status as a Patriots player impact you and present challenges to you as a prosecutor?
Well, I think the district attorney hit it right on the head. This case was not about the Patriot player. This was just about a murder occurring, a brutal, senseless murder, and that this defendant, Aaron Hernandez, should be treated like anyone else. And we impaneled a jury and asked those questions. Can you treat him as like any other citizen? And I was really grateful that I didn't think that really played into the case, the celebrity aspect of it. And again, I'll second my appreciation to you, the media, for the respect and the restraint you showed us, the family. They focused on the evidence, they showed up, they were serious about it, and obviously that shows in their verdict. So thank you very much.
Can you hear from some of the other family members? Ladies, your reaction?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
When you arrested him, you only charged him. There were 3 men in the car. Why was that?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question at this time, but I'm going to turn it over. Thank you very much.
Ladies, can we hear your reaction?
Yes, absolutely. Olivia, come on up if you want.
Your reaction at all to the sentencing?
Good afternoon. Just wanted to say thank you again, as my mom said, to the jurors and to, it's just, another day that Odin isn't here, and it's another day that the family has to deal with. Prayers and each other. We come from a strong knit family, and this has just brought us stronger together. Just to hear "I love you" every day from your mom or from your sister or a cousin who calls just to let you know that they're there for you. I don't think there's any other way that we could have gotten through it.
Are you able to get to forgiveness like your mom, or is that something?
I'm not as strong as my mom yet, so eventually that time will come.
Can you
describe how you felt?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to sit in court when the verdict was read. I was on my way here, but it was a sign of relief. I screamed, I cried, and then the first person that called me was my sister Shaquilla, and the first thing she said in tears was "I love you," and that was the best feeling that we've had in a long time.
Olivia, can you talk about Shakira's connection with the family. She's been here most of the day, sitting right next to her. So.
I bring her here because I love her like she's my sister. And anybody that knows I go vacations with her, she's not that talkative, but she's definitely a member of the family. My mom always says her girls, and her girls refers to Shaquilla, Shania, and I.
Fair to say this has brought you guys together.
Yes, and I love her because she loved Odin, and I know Odin loved her.
She said she's not a talker, but we're going to have to ask how did this is possible?
Thank you, guys. Olivia, one more. Olivia, can you say anything about how Shaquilla feels about not being able to tell?
And you've just been listening to the family of Odin Lloyd. This has been what a long trial. This has been long deliberations. Finally today, Aaron Hernandez found guilty of first-degree murder. He's been sentenced to life without parole. And just before we heard from Odin Lloyd's family once again, we also heard from the Bristol County District Attorney saying, and this really summed it up, Aaron Hernandez may have been a New England patriot, but the jury found he's just a man who committed a brutal murder.